TypeScript? So TypeScript is an open source programming language, and it's developed and maintained by Microsoft. It's a strict superset of JavaScript, meaning that it has everything that JavaScript has, plus a little bit more. Unlike JavaScript, which is just a scripting language, TrueScript is a proper compiled programming language, where the output is a transpiled version of JavaScript. So this compilation process allows for static type checking, so that the type of the variable is known at compile time. They can check it, unlike dynamically typed languages like JavaScript that can't do that because you don't actually run it until you use it. So let's have a bit of a review on objects. So within JavaScript, an object can be assigned to a variable. In this case, the object notation is the squiggly braces, and the objects are name pair values with the name and the value, and each one is separated by a comma. So we can access these properties of an object using the standard dot notation. So in this case here, where we had a variable of person, we have a person.name will return back whatever the name value was, or a person.age would return back the age. If we were to write something out to the JavaScript console using console.log, then we could have person.name, which would be Jill, is 21 years old, would be the output. So what is the type of an object? So in JavaScript, objects previously didn't have types, but in TypeScript, the type of an object is generally specified by using a class. So JavaScript now has support for classes as of ECMAScript 6, and it's now supported by all the browsers. So a class is a description of what should go into an object. It defines the structure of an object, and an object can then be created that conforms to the class description. So we create a class using the class keyword. So here, class person, we generally create the first letter of the class as an uppercase character. We can then add properties to our class, noting that we're not using the var or let to define these as variables, because these are just members of this particular class. And note the typing, that when we do that, we have name is of type string, age is of type number. So remember that a class defines the type of an object, so we can now declare a variable with the class person type. So here we've got our variable of person is being defined as of person type. So the lowercase person is the variable name, and the uppercase person is the type of the variable, which is defined by the class. We can assign an object directly to the person using these squiggly brackets, so assigning an object. Note that if the fields aren't the same, if we skip a field, that we get an error. So when we define it, we need to have both properties in there. So creating an instance of a class. So instead of ensuring that we have all of the fields correctly, we can use the new operator, similar to when in the rest of JavaScript, when we might have done a new array, a new string to create new variables. So this creates a new object with properties in the class, but with no values. So a var person equals new person will create a new instance of person with no values inside that. We can then use the dot notation to assign values to those particular properties for that particular instance. Constructors. So the constructor is a function which runs when an object is created from that class. So constructors are usually used to initialize values in the newly created object. Within TypeScript, a constructor is defined by the word constructor. And looking at this following example here, we have our class of person with its two properties, and we have its constructor, which is a function using the word constructor, where we can then assign values to the properties. And we'll have a look at this term of this here coming up. So this, so if we didn't use this in the compiler, so this being the this dot something, then the compiler will think the name or the age variables are not declared. So when we want to access class variables from within the class, we must use the word this dot in front of them. This simply means that the current object, so we are accessing the variables of the current object, as opposed to variables that might be declared either inside the function or globally. We can declare parameters for our constructor functions. So constructor parameters allow us to pass in values to the constructor. In this example here, we can see that we would be potentially, when we construct our particular class, we want to be able to pass in a name string and an age number, so that here, when we create our variable person of type person, it can be a new person, and we can pass in a string, which is the name, and an age, which is the number. We have an option of putting in some default values. This will make that particular property or particular parameter as optional, so that if you don't put something in, it will automatically put the default property in. In this case here, when we add a new person of Jill, because we omitted the age parameter, it will automatically put in the value of 18. So TypeScript allows us to declare properties in constructor parameters. This can reduce the number of lines in a class and save us typing the variables twice. So the following example we'll look at identifies or is identical to the previous, except that it declares the properties in the parameter. So in here, if we're going to be defining our properties in our parameter, they will have to be declared as public properties, meaning that they can be used outside of the class. We'll have a look in a moment of the different, we'll look at that now, so that everything in a class can be declared as either public, private, or protected. So in TrueScript, if we don't put any particular typing in there, they will be public. So other languages like Java default to protected, and C++ default to private. So what is public, private, and protected associated with? So with public, so any members declared public can be used outside of the class. If it's private, then private members can only be accessed from within the class. And if it's protected, then it's similar to a private, but it can be accessed by subclasses. So accessing or specifying the access modifier is not required because it will default to public if we don't put something in there.